welcome back to my corner of the internet. I am Shannon, and today I have another book talk video to share with you guys. And today we are talking about The Return by Rachel Harrison. First of all, look at the color of this book cover. I love it. Normally you don't see these bright sort of colors, and I think it's gonna look so nice on my bookshelf. Anyway, this book was a wild ride. I picked this up on the recommendation of a friend, Kim, who thought I might enjoy it based on the snippet. And yeah, it sounded right up my alley. It classifies itself as sort of a thriller mixed with a bit of horror. That's definitely true. And before I get into too much of the details, I'll give you a basic synopsis of the story, let you know what I thought of it, and then we'll move a little further into the details. So, this book is basically about a group of 4 friends, and they're in their late 20s, and one day, quite out of the blue, one of them decides to go on a hiking trip, and she just doesn't return that night. She goes missing. Nobody knows where she is. She's got a husband. She's the only one of the 4 that's married, and he can't find her anywhere. They search. Eventually, they decide to sort of call it that she must have had an accident while she was hiking, and even though they were never able to find her body, but she's just gone. They have a funeral for her eventually once the first year passes of her disappearance. And then one day after she's been gone for 2 years, her husband goes outside and finds her just sitting in the, I think, porch swing of their home. And as you would be, he's very shocked. She's emaciated, very, very thin. Her teeth are all rotting and falling out. And when she's asked where she's been for the past 2 years, she says that she doesn't remember. But the interesting thing is that she remembers all of her memories from before she went away. She remembers him. She remembers her friends, her family, all the small details. People try to ask her about things to see how good her memories are, and they're perfect. She can remember little details just like you would of your own life. So that is something, I guess, but it's still very strange that she doesn't have any memory of the 2 years that she was gone missing. So her husband starts to notice a few little details about her that are different. Like, before she went missing, she was a vegetarian and had been since she was a teenager, like a long time vegetarian. And now all of a sudden she can't get enough of meat. Like, the rarer the better. She's just craving the meat. And there's just little things about her personality that are just different. So when the book picks up, at first she's gone, then she's back. So this all happens very quickly in the beginning of the book. And her 3 friends, so our main character, she's not the main character, the one who went missing. Her nor her husband are. It's a woman named Elise, and she is Julie. Julie's the girl who had gone missing. She's her best friend. And then they have 2 other friends, May and Molly. So the 4 of them were always very close, and then it was kind of Julie and Elise, and then May and Molly, who were the 2 sort of close members of the group. Sorry, my dog just came and sat next to me, but I didn't realize she did, and I could just feel something tickling my toes, and I was like, what is that? But it's just her. Okay, so they decide that what they want to do is have a getaway, a chance to really connect with Julie since she's been back, because the thing is, it's been about 6 months now since she's returned, and they haven't seen her face to face yet. She's really been avoiding them. Anytime Elise calls and is like, let me come and just, hang out with you, no pressure. We don't have to talk about anything. I just want to see you and be with you. Julie makes up excuses to keep her away. And so finally, May, she sort of organizes the whole event. They're all going to be going to a hotel together called I think it's Red Honey Hotel. And it's this really kind of eclectic, sort of kitschy hotel that May heard about in her work. She's like a photographer for magazines or something like that. And they did a photo shoot at this hotel because it's just so unique. So she books them 4 rooms, 1 room for each of them, and each room, it kind of reminds me here in Canada, in Alberta and Edmonton, we have a hotel. It's in this mall called the West Edmonton Mall, and the hotel is called the Fantasyland Hotel. And each room has its own theme, and it's very extravagant, very over the top. And so this hotel kind of reminds me of that, only a much more sort of darker version of it. So they get their rooms, they're all checking in. Once they all check in, Elise has a really weird feeling about her room. She doesn't like it. She doesn't want to stay alone in the room. She gets just weird vibes from it. It's freezing cold in there, and it's just bad vibes. So the rest of the story is the 4 women, and this is the majority of the story. These 4 women staying in this hotel, trying to get to know their friend Julie again and figure out what the heck happened to her while she was gone for the 2 years. And when they all see her at first, how thin she's gotten, how her teeth are just falling apart, they're all very taken aback, and they realize that's probably why she hasn't wanted to see them for the first 6 months that she was back, because she does look so different and so unsettling. So yeah, that's kind of the basic premise of this book. I enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed it. The first 2/3 can sometimes get a little bit repetitive, only because it's kind of just the 3 girls talking about how strange their friend is now. So it's like them kind of trying to figure out what's going on. So it's a lot of dialogue that's in some ways very similar to dialogue they've already had, but it works for this because you're also wondering what the heck's happening. And to me, there's just something about that build of dialogue, that slow burn of them not knowing and getting more and more afraid, that adds to the overall creepy vibe of the book, because throughout the entire book, like, you're a little nervous. As I'm reading, I'm a little nervous. I have no idea what's going to happen. So if you don't want spoilers, now would be a good time to click away. So I will say I would recommend it, especially if you like a bit of supernatural fantasy elements in your spooky stories. This, like I said at the beginning, this took a turn. It didn't go where I thought it was going to go. I thought it was going to be more supernatural based, with like maybe the hotel was haunted, but then I was going to think to myself, like, how would Julie being disappeared for 2 years relate to this hotel that they just kind of randomly went to? So I didn't know how that was going to work out. So at least for me, I was constantly trying to figure out what was going on, and I did not guess. I didn't get there on my own. Normally when I'm reading a thriller, as soon as I start reading, my brain starts spinning and I try to think of the craziest things I can think of. But since this took such a drastic turn from where I thought it was going to go, I didn't guess at all. And I enjoyed the ride of reading it. So yeah, like I said, click away now if you don't want any spoilers. Definitely recommend checking it out if that's the kind of genre you like to read. Okay, so now that they're gone, I'll tell you a bit more about what is happening. So when they're at the hotel, Elise is the one, our main character, who's kind of having the weirdest vibes in the hotel. She's, like I said, her room's really cold. When she's in the room, she keeps having the feeling that she's being watched, and it's really starting to creep her out. As time goes by, the other girls, May and Molly, they also start to get these feelings. There's also weird vibes just about the hotel in general. The employees are acting strange. Employees are disappearing, and Elise, as she's walking around the hotel over the days, because we're there for a few days, I think it's 4 or 5 days, As the days go by, Elise is hearing like employees talking to each other about how, you know, they're short-staffed, what's going on. There's a lot of whispering, and it's making Elise really nervous. As far as Julie goes, she's the one that was missing. She starts exhibiting some really unsettling behaviors, like when they're at lunch and dinner, she'll order meat and she'll eat it with her, like even if she orders a sandwich, she'll open the sandwich up and eat the meat with her hands. And there's a few points in the book where as she's just gnawing away on this meat, teeth will fall out and she'll just be like, oh, like it's nothing. And those parts, the teeth parts, really freaked me out. I found that really gruesome, but it works in the context of the story. But still, oh, teeth stuff, I don't like it. Anyway, so it comes to a head as the days go by. Julie's body is kind of just deteriorating more and more and more. Like sores are appearing on her face, and just her hair is falling out, and people are like, what is happening? And one thing that I do like about this is, as gruesome as it is and as scary as it can be, there's also a layer of humor to it throughout the whole thing. Even when the most gruesome things are happening on the page, there's a ribbon of humor that runs through it, and I liked that a lot. So eventually May gets sick, and nobody really knows what's wrong with her. She's running a fever, she's vomiting, she's very sick, and she's the one that's had the most personal skin-to-skin contact with Julie. And clearly that's not affecting her very well. There's a few times when Elise tries to have a conversation with Julie, but it doesn't, they're interrupted time after time, and it just doesn't work out. And then one morning, Patsy, who is like sort of the manager of the hotel or whatever, she's like, okay, everybody has to leave right now. We have to leave. I'll refund you all your money, but we're very short-staffed. It's an emergency. Everyone has to leave. So as they're all getting ready to leave, there's a final confrontation between Elise and Julie. And Julie, at this point, she looks like an absolute monster. Like, she's decaying to the point of hardly being recognizable anymore. And so Elise is yelling at Molly and May, like, just go, leave, get May to the hospital. Molly's like, you have to come with us. And she's like, I can't leave Julie here alone. And there's this one scene where, let me see if I can find it, because I really liked it. So while all of this craziness is going on, we'll get to the part I want to read to you in a sec, but Julie and Elise are kind of having this conversation, and Julie tells Elise about what happened to her while she was hiking in the park. She was attacked by this creature who dragged her into the woods, and he changed her into whatever it was he was, and now that's what she is. But because of Julie always knew when Elise was missing, or Elise always knew, sorry, when Julie was missing, that she wasn't dead. There was something in her that was like, she's out there somewhere. And Julie, wherever she was, could feel that. She could feel it, and she couldn't fully go. She was still connected to the past. And so she asked these creatures, who she's now a part of, their clan, I don't know, if she can go back and finish her unfinished business. And they say okay, and it allows her to temporarily look the way she did, which is how she looks when she first goes back to her friends and family. She doesn't have much time, of course, and that's why she's now rapidly deteriorating. So she wants to take Elise back with her and turn her into whatever kind of creature she now is. And so there's this part at the end where it kind of shifts into like this metaphor of the difficulty that we sometimes have when we're grieving and letting people go. So she says, 2.5 years, and I've been wrong the whole time. I married myself to this wild, ignorant hope. I allowed myself to think it made me smarter than everyone else, that I knew better. I can add it to the long list of my mistakes. Julie died. She died 2.5 years ago on a solo hiking trip. In Acadia National Park, she's dead. I lost her, but I couldn't let her go. I've been clinging to the small parts of her that are left, that are some echo of her former self, because I couldn't accept the change. I couldn't accept I couldn't accept that she's not the same. I guess I love her that much. I was willing to take the scraps. Any piece of her was better than nothing. It was better than conceding. I didn't recognize this person in front of me. I can't deny it now as she unbuckles her face, as her mouth expands and closes in. So I loved that part, really got to me, and I think any of us who have felt a significant loss can relate to that difficulty in letting go, that hanging on for dear life to any bits that we can. And so I think this book is really interesting, and that it's one story kind of wrapped up inside another story, and I thought it was fun. And it hit me in the feelings. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. So if any of this sounds interesting to you, even now that you have the spoilers, there's of course a lot that I have left out, because you can't tell a whole story in half an hour. But that's the gist of it. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great weekend. I'll be putting up chapter 3 of the Read With Me that we are doing for Emily of New Moon, either tomorrow or Sunday. And yeah, I hope you're all doing well and that you're staying home and you're staying safe. And I will see you guys real soon. Bye.